Hello, welcome to my channel tutorial stream. Myself Nilay Mehta. Today we are going to create a simple application to load data from API using Redux Thunks and React. Redux provides the state management for the JavaScript application. It is mostly used with the React, but we can also use it with the Angular, Vue and any other JavaScript based framework. In this video I will just show you the overview of the Redux only. I will not go into the deep concept of the Redux and why it is needed. I'm assuming you have the knowledge of React as well as the Redux concept. Here I am just showing the overview of the Redux and Redux with Thunks. State management is an important task in the React. Redux provide a way to handle the state management. Redux gives the centralized storage. Within that, it stores all the data. So there will be a single truth of source. Redux provides read-only state. To update the value of the state, we need to use the reducer. It is a pure function. Redux had a 5 core concept: store, action, dispatcher, reducer, and middleware. An action is a plain object that describes the intention of the course change with a type of property. Dispatcher allows to dispatch the action. Reducers are a pure function in Redux. A reducer are only way to change the state of the Redux. It is the only place where you can write the logic and the calculation. Store is an immutable object. It provides the state container that will hold the application state. Middleware is just some code that you can put between the framework receiving the request and between the framework generating the response. There are various libraries available to work as the middleware for Redux. Thunk and Saga are most popular libraries for middleware in Redux. Here is a simple architecture that represents the Redux Thunk's functionality. In the component, we are rendering the sum element which may trigger the sum event. For example, we render the button, and when the user click on that button, it will call the event handler for that. From the event handler, we will dispatch the sum action, so it will go to update the store. But before updating the store, it will execute the middleware. As said before, Thunk is the middleware. Thunk will execute and it will dispatch the sum action, so update the store. But within the same method, we can request the sum data in the server-side API. So that will generate the sum response. And again, based on the response, we will dispatch the another action that will execute the reducer to update the store with the data that we receive in the API. And as soon as the state is updated in the store, our component will re-render, so it will get the updated value. Here is the application that we are going to create. It will just show the name of the users. When it requests the data, it shows the loading text. However, we are getting the response in the fraction of second, so it's just available for that time only. After it receives the data, it will show here. For this, I am using the public API of the JSON placeholder. It provides the RESTful API for testing purpose. We are using the user's endpoint. It will give the details of the 10 users. From this, we are just interested only in the name property. Before digging our hand in the code, I want to tell you to subscribe our channel, hit the bell icon so you will get the notification for our update. And if you have any idea, topic or issue, then mention it in the comment. I will try to make the tutorial on that. Let's switch to VS Code. I'm going to use the Create React tab for this session. But you can also use the React Rewind, Next.js or Gatsby. Write the npx create React app and project name will be React Redux Thunks Axios demo. Here our blank React app is created. First of all, I am going to remove the all unnecessary files. Now we need to add some packages for Redux and API call. I am using Yarn. You can also use the npm. Add Redux, Redux React, Redux Thunk, Redux DevTool extension, and Axios. Usually configuration like the API endpoint are placed inside the environment file. So let's create a .env file, add the React app API URL. In create React app, we need to prefix all the environment variable with the React app and paste the URL of JSON placeholder. Create a new helper file for API client. This method will create an instance of Axios that we will use in the services. Obtain the API URL from the process environment. Create an instance of Axios. Set the base URL for the API. Here our API will give the JSON response. So set the response type JSON. You can configure more things too, but for the demo, I want to just keep it simple. And import the Axios from Axios. And export this. Now let's create the user service. For service, I prefer to create a class. Create a method named getAllUsers. Use the API client to obtain the Axios instance. We want to call the user's endpoint, and the request type will be get. So we need to call the get method. You can use the post, patch, or delete method based on the your endpoint. And endpoint URL will be users. And export the new instance of this class. Here our services are also created. Now we need to consume this service from Redux Thunks. Create a folder name Redux. Within that, create a folder name store and reducer. Within reducer, I prefer to create an individual folder for each reducer. Here we have to deal with the users, so create a new folder for users. I prefer this kind of folder structure for Redux. First of all, we will create a file for ActionTypes. We are going to just load the data from API. So there will be three different action type will be there: start, success, and error. I'm creating object for this, and the property will be user load start, user load success, and user load error. Now based on those action types, we need to create an action. First of all, import the action types. Here we will create an action for each action type. Let's start with the user load start. As you know that action is nothing but just method that will return an object. It has the two properties, action type and the payload data. Here action type will be user load start. This action does not require any parameter, so there will be no payload data. Create a user load success. After the successfully calling API, we will get the users. Here our action type will be user load success, and we need to pass the users in the payload data. So that will be used by reducer for the further operation. Create a user load error. Here we will get the error message. and action type will be user load error, and pass the error message in the payload. In the end, export all those methods as a default object. Now let's create a file for initial state. This file will export the object that will represent the initial value for the reducer. We require a flag that will indicate whether our API is called or not. So it will be is loading, and by default it will be false. API will give the list of users. So add the users property, and by default it will be null. Our API call might give the error due to some reason. So add a property for error message. Now it's a time to create a reducer. A reducer is just a function that has the switch case for each action type. Based on that, we need to return the updated state. Import action type and initial state. The reducer will get the two parameter existing state and action that will be executed. As we know that the action has just two property, type and payload. So I am using the object destructor here. Here we need to specify the initial value as a default value for the state. So when the first time this reducer will call, it will use the initial value for the state. And the switch case based on the action type. If it's the user load start, then spread the existing state. This action will be dispatched before we are calling the API. So we need to set the isLoading flag true. Also, we need to reset the value for the users and the error message property. When it's a user load success, then we need to set the isLoading false, as our API data was successfully obtained. So we are not waiting for that. And set the payload into the user's property. When it's a user load error, here we will set the is loading false, as some kind of error was occur in the our API call, like we get the 401, 404 or 500 or any other client or the server side error, and set the payload data in the error message. In the default clause, we need to return the state as it is. Export the reducer. Now we are going to create a file for thunks. Many people write the thunks within the action or the reducer file, but I prefer to create a separate file for that. Here we are going to call the method of service. So import that. We also need the action, so import that too. Export the load users async. Thunks function will get the dispatch method, and that we can execute the reducer. Before going to calling the service method, I will dispatch the user load start. So this will set the is loading true. Note that here I have used the parenthesis after the action name. Yes, actions are the method that will return the object. Now we need to call the get all users method of the service. It will return the promise. In then clause, we will get the response of the API. If the API call was success, then we need to dispatch the users load success and have to pass the data of the response. If there is any error, dispatch the user load error. And here we need to pass the message of the error. Here our thunk is created. Now we need to create the root reducer. Currently we are working with the only fetching user API, so we have just single reducer. But in the real life application, you might have the different component or area for which you are using the reducers. So there can be a multiple reducer. So in the root reducer, we will combine all those reducer and that will pass in the store. Create a root reducer. That will just return the combined reducer. Within that, we need to specify the each reducer that our application is supporting. Here I am setting the user reducer with the user key and import the combined reducer from the Redux and also import the root reducer. At the end, export the root reducer. We need to create a store. Create the configure store method that will hold the store reducer and the middleware. From Redux, we need to import the apply middleware, create store, and compose. Also need to import the thunks from the Redux Thunk and our root reducer. Create an array of middleware for the store. For this example, we have the single middleware, that is Thunk. Then we need to create the compose enhancer. This will be used when our store has the enhancers. If you already work with the Redux, then you will be aware of that Redux extension in the browser. Using this extension, we can analyze all the changes in the store. You can check the value in the store before and after the action execute. So we will look for the composer in the window. If that was not present, then we will continue with the built-in composer. Let call the composer enhancers and apply middleware. To create a store, we can use the create store method. Let's call the root reducer. Again, that was the method that will call the combined reducer. And in the second parameter, pass the enhancers and return the store. And export this method as a default. Now we have the store and we need to specify that in the index.js. Let me remove the unused code. Here we need to create a store using the configure store. And we need to add the provider from React Redux. And import the configure store. And pass the store in the store property. Now all the component within this provider will be able to access the state from the store as well as dispatch actions. Let's create a new component that will show the list of users. Here I am creating a new page, name users. To load data from the reducer, we need to use the use select hook. Import that hook from the React Redux. In the parameter, we need to pass lambda expression for the store property that we are going to retrieve. Here we are interested in the obtaining the users. Note that this users property is as per the store. So if you are use the different name here, then you need to use the same name in the use select hook. Users property represent the user reducer. And we know that our users reducer has the three properties. So here we can use the object structure and obtain those property is loading, users, and error message. Let's create a div block and add the h1 tag for user listing label. If the isLoading flag is true, then we will display the loading text in the h3 tag. You can show the loading icon or the animation. Similarly, if there is any error message, then show that. And if there is any users, then map each user in the h5 tag, pass the user ID in the key, and show the username. Now our view is created, but we have not dispatched any action yet to load the data. We need to create a dispatcher using the use dispatch hook, add into the import statement. Create a dispatcher. I'm going to load the data in the use effect, but you can also create a button and load the data on buttons click. In the dispatch method, we need to pass the load user async action. Import the load user async action from the Thunk. Save all the files, open console, and start. Here our app open. We are getting the error. Dispatcher is not a function. Okay. Here in the Thunk, we need to return the function that will get the dispatcher. So we need to add the additional lambda expression here, just like this. Save. Now error is gone, but we are not getting the any data. Let me open the DevTools. Here I have already installed the Redux DevTools, so here I can analyze the all the changes in the our store. Here we can see that it executed both of the actions, but still we are not get the data. Here in the state you can see that it does not updated the any state. So most probably there is a issue in the our reducer. Let me open that. Ah, here we need to use the action type instead of the action, and also update the all the case. That was a very silly mistake. Sorry about that. Save the file, and here we got the result. If you refresh the page, it will show the loading text based on the our flag. Let me open the service and call the some dummy endpoint so we can test the error too. Here you can see that it shows the error message for 404. Here our application is working fine with the React, Redux Thunks and Axios. I have uploaded this repo in the GitHub, so you can take a reference from that. And if you have any doubt, then mention in the comment. I or some other user will help you with that. Don't forget to subscribe our channel. Thank you.